Hey everyone, I'm David Scott and this is your latest online singing tutorial. Today I'm going to be explaining why breathing is so important in singing, and I'm also going to try to explain what people mean when they say sing from your diaphragm. If you're a subscriber on this account, you might notice that I've moved. I'm no longer in the old piano room, I'm now in a brand new music studio, if you can call it that. It's a little bit bare at the moment. That's because of the latest round of restrictions. We're not allowed to have anyone over to do any work, and all the furnishing shops are closed, unfortunately. But I want to get back to making videos, so hopefully over the next few videos you'll see a little bit of progress as this place looks a little bit more homey. It is perfect though for online singing lessons, so if you do want a one-on-one consultation or lesson, please give me an email at info@davidscottsinger.com. Right, let's get into breathing. When I first started singing in choirs and local music groups, there'd be music teachers or conductors, and they'd say things like, make sure you're singing from your diaphragm. Now, I have to admit, I was terribly confused by this. Granted, it was before the days where I could suddenly Google what diaphragm meant, but I knew that you made sound from here, and your vocal cords was what you'd use to sing, and I was wondering, how can I sing from my diaphragm? I mean, I think it's something around here, but how can this make noise? So I just didn't understand that term at all. And I would maybe suggest to any singing teachers, when you have someone who's young and learning how to sing, don't use the term diaphragm, because it just confuses people. It sure as heck confused me. And when I began teaching, I didn't use the term at all. But I found in more recent times that what happens is my students would go off to their courses or their other teachers for consultations, and they'd use the term diaphragm, so they'd come back to me and say, what, they were talking about this diaphragm. So I now take a bit of time at the beginning of giving someone singing lessons to explain exactly what the diaphragm is and how it relates to singing. So it is this thin bit of muscle that sits at the bottom of your lungs. When you breathe in, it contracts and goes down. It kind of flattens, and it creates a vacuum, which then pulls air down into your lungs. When you breathe out, it relaxes. And it kind of works as a bit of an air pump, because then it sends the air up through the windpipe, and the vocal cords obviously vibrate, and that's how we make sound. So if you think of the diaphragm as this little air pump that drags air in and sends air out, that's a really good understanding of how it works. Now, how does that relate to singing? Well, diaphragm obviously doesn't make sound, so when someone says make sure you're singing from your diaphragm, I think what they really mean is make sure you're breathing correctly. First of all, we need to get a really good deep breath of air, and we need to get air into the lower part of our lungs so the diaphragm will flatten right out. So the way to do that is to make sure your belly moves out when you take a breath of air in. So I get students who come to me, and usually the first thing I have to do is correct their breathing, because they get into habits of gasping and breathing through the chest. So you get this and unfortunately, what that does is just brings air into the top part of your lungs, and it's not a good breath of air for singing, because you lose it pretty quickly. And the other thing, it's really, really audible, and if you're singing with a microphone in front of you, you get this big and it just comes out on any kind of recordings, and I don't like it. And I see professional singers have big high gasps, and I hear the big so I think it's best to just stamp that out straight away. So get into the habit of breathing a deep breath of air. So as I say, your belly comes out. So I'll do it here, and you can see my belly actually moves out. So it kind of looks as though it's suddenly put on weight, and then I breathe out, and it goes in. I breathe in here, and I breathe out. And if I'm breathing like that, the diaphragm will go down and flatten completely, and I'll get a really good breath of air in. So the way for you to practice this at home is look in the mirror, and if you see any movement in your shoulders or any movement in your chest when you're breathing, it's not the right breath of air for when you want to sing. If you're finding it difficult, two things you can do. One, as I did there, put your hands against your belly, and push out against them when you're breathing. The other thing, if that's not working, is lie down on the ground, get a heavy book, put it on your belly, and when you're breathing in, push that book up. It's very difficult, but not impossible, but it's very difficult to breathe incorrectly when you're lying down. Furthermore, your posture will be excellent. So it's a really good way to establish good breathing habits. So that's the first thing with the diaphragm. How you breathe is important for your singing. But there's something else, there's something a little bit more important. So provided you've got that really good breath of air in, you now want to control the amount of air that you release when you're singing. As I said, if we go back to imagining the diaphragm as an air pump, what's probably happening if we don't sing, if we're just used to speaking, is that it's expending the air quite quickly. So your exhalation will be quite small. That's a problem for singing because too much air can come up. We want to just have the right amount of air coming up so your vocal cords will vibrate and make the best possible sound. This, I'm getting a bit technical now, but this is called subglottal pressure. It's basically the right amount of air, the right volume and the right speed coming through your windpipe, going past your vocal cords which vibrate to make the best sound you can possibly make. And again, generally at the start of someone's lessons, they're probably releasing too much air too soon. So I spend a bit of time in lessons trying to get them to strengthen these muscles to stop the diaphragm coming up. So when someone says make sure you're breathing from your diaphragm or you make sure you're singing from the diaphragm, what they mean is make sure you're getting a good breath of air in and make sure you're not letting it go too much. How do you stop it? How do you control the air? How do you stop the diaphragm coming up too quickly? Well, there's a few exercises you can do with these muscles here. So like I had the breath of air in, like that, you can begin to just hold it and just kind of press out with these muscles. And you should find that you're able to hold air for a little bit longer. Another exercise you can do, which is a really good one on how you release air, is by getting a good deep breath of air here and then release the air to it. And you want to feel a kind of connection with these muscles. You want to feel these muscles engaging. Because when you're singing, you want to be just slightly pressing out or leaning out with these tummy muscles and with your lower back muscles and again with these lower muscles on your pelvic floor. Just a little press out. I don't like saying push out because that would kind of give a connotation of being a bit aggressive, and we don't want it to be aggressive, but we do want to have a little bit of engagement here, and these muscles need a bit of strengthening. The other way to strengthen them, especially if you're not getting to grips with the breathing with your belly coming out, is lie down on the floor, try with your book again, push the book up and try and keep it up for about 5 seconds, about 10 seconds, whatever feels comfortable. When you've mastered that, maybe you can go and get a weight, like a 5k plate or something, or a kettlebell if you have it, and push that weight up with your tummy muscles and see how long you can hold it for. And do a few of them, because when you're singing, there'll be times when you need to get a really quick breath of air. And believe you me, you do not have time for a big high. You need it to be these muscles just working, these tummy muscles, these back muscles, these lower muscles there. So a good way to strengthen these muscles up is to actually work on it with a weight. So let's just reverse it back a bit. The diaphragm, what is it? It's this thin dome-shaped muscle which flattens when you breathe in and relaxes when you breathe out. We want to stop it coming up as quick so we can hang on to air for a bit longer. We can reduce the amount of air, the volume of air going up, so we can create the best possible sound when our vocal cords vibrate. So that's it. So as I say, I take a little bit of time explaining to a student what a diaphragm is, but after that I don't really use the term because, you can't see it. How can you use it? The muscles that need to be engaged are the tummy muscles, the back muscles, and these lower muscles here. So from now on, I just use the term support. So if I'm singing, by engaging these muscles, I am supporting my sound. So if you have any questions, I know it can get a bit technical there, but it is a very important part of singing and something you need to get on top of quite early. So any questions, here's the email, info@davidscottsinger. I'll be delighted to answer your questions or do any one-on-one sessions if you're finding you're missing your singing during these lockdown times. I hope we're all staying safe, and look, please hit the old like and subscribe. It would be a huge help to me. Thanks, and enjoy your singing.